Good morning, dolls, and welcome to Little Gretchen's workshop. So today we're going to go ahead and finish up the details for the guests for the wedding, but we're going to start with their hair. Now, I made several wefts in several different colors because I have several different dolls to wig and complete. Now, this doll I've already attached her hair to her head, and now I'm going to style it. Now, I really love this type of viscose. I got it from Moors off eBay. It's really nice hair and it's textured, which really works well for my type of dolls. Now, in order to give her the updo style that I want her to have, I'm actually using floral wire to wrap the hair around to create my bun. The wire will hold it into the shape that I want before I add the glue to lock it down. Now, I'd already decided on the style I wanted her hair to have, but I realized there was actually too much hair in the little bun I created. So I really needed to thin out the hair so that it would be in right proportion to her head, because although I thought the bun was really cute, it was way too big and too high. So I unraveled the hair so that I could trim it down and thin it out, which wasn't very difficult because when you brush the doll hair that's made of viscose, it comes out in the brush. Now I do like to spray it with a little bit of alcohol to help smooth it and gather it together to give it a little bit more grip when I wrap it around the floral wire. And after I got it wound down to the base of her head, I kind of twisted it so that it would create the little bun shape that I was looking for. And I twisted it all the way around the back and came back around the front again to make sure the wire was concealed and to make sure the little bun was positioned properly in the center of the top of her head. Now, if you don't have floral wire, you can definitely use the twist ties from loaves of bread. Now, after the bun was secure in the wire, now it was time for me to lock it down into the shape that I wanted. So I'm going to add a little bit of tacky glue right under the base of the bun because I want it to look as though it's been pinned up there and not just wrapped in wire. Now you can see here I'm adding an ample amount of the tacky glue right to the base of the bun so that it ensure that when it's dried, it'll be positioned the way I want it to be. Now this will need to be held in place for a little while. And after I felt comfortable about letting the top one go, I went on to create the second bun in the back of her head. And the process is very similar, except the bun is going to be kind of twisted a different way because I want the buns to match up and meet in the center. Now I did the same thing, brushing it out to thin it a little bit. Sprayed it with a little bit of alcohol. Now you see here I'm repeating the same process in a different direction for the bun, but you can create all types of styles using these same basic techniques, so don't limit yourself. Now after the bun was wound up on the wire and it was close to the original bun, I thought it would make a really cute style if they were kind of butted up against each other on the top of her head. And you can see here from this angle how I'm going to do it. So now I just need to add a little glue to that center to make that top piece touch the back piece. So again, I got an ample amount of the tacky glue on the end of my little pointed tool, and I added it to the base of the big bun at the bottom. And when I felt like I had added enough glue across the broad base of the back bun, I held them together. Now, I was holding it for a while and I realized that me just simply holding it was not going to hold it long enough. So I had to employ some methods that I use in some of my real life hairstyles. So I took a little end paper and wrapped it around the back of her hair and just kind of folded it all the way around the entire hairstyle and then used a rubber band to secure it. And after it was secure, I opened up a part for her face so she could relax while her hair was setting. So I went on to work on the grandmother doll. Now, you may ask why this grandmother doll has black hair. And it really is a valid question, just like the question I had as a child as to why my great-grandmother on my father's side had black hair. And I learned very quickly you don't ask your elders questions like that. Now, although this doll has black hair, I do want to do her hair in a more simple style, just a simple bun at the back of her head, more toward the base and not so high up. And so I twisted it with the wire as well and added the glue to the base and held it in place for a little while. And then I went on to employ the very same method with the end paper and the rubber band to hold the hair in place. And again, just like with the other doll, after I secured the rubber band, I opened up an area where she'd be able to see while her hair was setting. I think it would be nice if they sit together while their hair is processing. Now here's the little seated doll. I just packed the cavity of her hair with tissue paper and glue and allowed it to dry. I did seal it with an end paper, and then I went on to add her hair wefts. Now I'm using a Mongolian lamb wool for her hair. Now, it actually came off of an old coat that I had, but I thought it was a perfect texture for the hairstyle I wanted to do for her. Now, in order to protect her dress, because her hair process was going to take a little bit more work, I wrapped her in cellophane or just plastic wrap to protect her clothes. Now, her head is very little, so the hair wefts don't need to be very big. So I'm just cutting them into workable size pieces before I begin to add them to her scalp. Now, I add the glue right at the base of the head between the ears, but not all the way down to the lobes. And little by little, I added one track at a time. And always be mindful to position the hair in a natural way. Now this just shows me trimming the weft down because I don't want to have a lot of excess bunching up on the top of her hair. Make it as thin as possible so you can make the layers natural. And you really want to pay close attention as you begin to approach the hairline to make sure it's not too thick and too big. Now I added the bulk of the hair to the back of her head, and then as I got toward her hairline, I added a thin bead of glue across the front and then added the piece of hair going down so that when I begin to do her style, I can fold it back. Now you will need to allow that to dry completely before you manipulate anything. But after it was set, you can kind of see how it looks, and it gives her a natural hairline. Now there's quite a bit of scalp showing there near the side of her ear, so I added a little glue and a couple curls to fill that in so it wouldn't look like she had some type of problem going on there. And again, you want to be very, very sparing with your glue around the hairline because you don't want it looking white or glunky. Now, if it does get any kind of clumps, you can use a little acetone to thin it out or melt out some of the glue. Now I'm going to allow her to dry completely before I style her hair. And now her hair is all dry. I've just pulled it back to the back of her head. And again, I'm playing with little pieces of hair along her hairline to make everything look natural. So now I'm going on to add hair to the mother doll. Now, she's very lovely, and I really want to give her a very sophisticated style, but I want to use the textured hair that I have. Now, the other doll was the Mongolian lamb, but this is the textured viscose like I used on the first doll, and I think this is going to work really well for the type of style I'm trying to do. So again, I'm trimming the pieces down so that they'll fit nicely on her head because her head is very small as well. And after I separated the wefts, I trimmed off some of the excess glue. So again, the process is the same. You want to size the hair between the ears, at the base of the head, or the top of the neck. And you want to always be conscious of how you position the hair based on the type of hairstyle you want to create. Now, this doll's hair is going to be a similar style to the first doll with the two buns at the top, so I need to add enough hair to the crown to create those two big buns. So while the back of her hair is drying, let's check on the ladies with the end paper wrap sets. And I had 2 layers on her, so I'm removing them all, and she looks absolutely perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. It stayed in place, and it really, really made everything look really, really neat. So that's absolutely perfect. Now I do have a little bit of glue around the nape of her neck, so I'm going to use a little bit of acetone to just melt that in and to blend out that white looking glue. And I do that by simply dipping the pointed part of my needle tool into the acetone to melt it in. So although you're very careful with the placement of your tracks, this is something that happens sometimes, especially around the edges of the hair. But again, just melt it in with the acetone. Don't make it a big deal. The hairstyle is still fine, and the acetone won't melt off what needs to be there. It'll just bleed out that first surface so that you won't see the white part. So let's check on the grandma doll, and she was wrapped pretty firmly as well. And I really love how hers turned out. She's kind of got like a kind of a messy bun style, but it's kind of over to one side. So she was a pretty jazzy lady in her younger days, and she's not going to give it up without a fight. And although she's a grandmother and a great-grandmother, she's trying to hold her look together. Now, I did take a little extra time to work on the little curls around her hairline because I definitely don't want her to leave the salon dissatisfied. So now that things are settled with her, let's check on the other doll. So working on the other ladies gave her a little time to set. So now the back of her hair is doing well. So let's trim off a couple wefts and do the top of her hair and the front. And here I am splitting one of the wefts so that it'll be a manageable size to add to the crown and sides of her hair. And you want to follow the same process all the way around the doll's head until the doll's head is completely covered and there's enough to complete the style you desire. Now let's go ahead and complete our men. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you a process. I actually did show it in an earlier video when I was making Marguerite's dad. I will leave a link in the description for that video. Now, for the dad doll, he already has hair on his head, so I'm just adding a little facial hair. So I'm using some remnants of my viscose material to create a mustache. Now this is textured hair, but it will work on hair that's not textured as well. It just won't be as full, but I chop it up into teeny little bits. Now this hair is really wispy. You can't breathe on it or sneeze or it'll go all over the place. Now it's always a best practice to wrap your doll in plastic wrap before you begin to do their hair, but I felt like because I was just doing a mustache, I really didn't need to wrap his entire body. So I added a little bit of the tacky glue just under his nose on his top lip, and then used a toothpick to gently place some of the hair fibers right in that area. Now you will need to work with it and arrange it so it doesn't cover the lip unless that's the type of look that you're going for. Now I'm trying to spread it across over to his cheeks because I want it to be a really full mustache. Now when I got to the point that I was almost finished with the mustache, I looked at him again and something didn't look right. When I was growing up, all the men in our community had lots and lots of facial hair. So it just didn't look natural for him not to have hair that connected from his hairline down to his mustache. And after I connected the hairline to the mustache, I realized I had used too much black hair and he was starting to look like Super Mario, so I needed to add more gray hair. Now while he was drying, I started to create hair for my other man doll. So I used the same color hair that I used for his wife in the beginning, but I cut it up into the little bit. Now he was completely bald. I removed his original hair because it was really pretty sad and it made me unhappy. And so I began to add the hair to his head in little clumps. Now you definitely are going to have to take your time with this process. This is edited video, so it took me a lot longer to do this than what you see in this video. But I totally covered his hair with the little red hair fibers, and after the head was totally covered, then I began to process it with the water and glue solution. Now this is the same water and glue solution that I use when I create my curtains and for certain types of styles for my beds. So dolls, I want to warn you, in this process everything's going to look really, really crazy, but you have to trust the process. Totally saturate the entire head with the water and glue solution, and you definitely want to work it all the way through so that the hair is saturated with the solution. Now after his hair is totally saturated, you want to begin to style the hair and shape it into the look that you want it to have after it's dry. Now you really want to make sure that you work with it around the hairline and around the doll's ears to make sure that the hair isn't covering the ears, again, unless that's the look you're going for. Now when I got to this point, I was really beginning to get excited and I was really wanting to go ahead and get to his facial hair. But I restrained myself and focused on the job at hand to ensure that his hair had a shape that I would be happy with when it was dry. I created sort of like a faux part in the side and just pushed the hair around again to make it look as though it was combed, textured hair, but it had fallen into whatever its natural curl pattern was. And I used the same process to create his mustache, not making it quite as thick as the other doll because this doll is younger. Now after I got done with his mustache, I did want to beef up his eyebrows a little bit to make them look a little bit fuller and stronger. Now I'm fixing his eyebrows with a nail striping brush, but the tip of a toothpick or a fine detail brush will get similar results. When I finished with his eyebrows, I felt like he needed more hair, so he got sideburns too. Now as I began to do the final touches and the finishing pieces to the ladies, I realized that I had created hats that worked really well with their outfits, and I was really tickled about that. Now the little girl, I braided her hair into a single braid and put a bow at the end, and I'm just adding some of those little gold buttons. Now here's the mother doll. She turned out really nice. I liked her hair and everything, but I felt like a lot of her forehead was exposed, and that really wasn't the look I was going for. So I decided to add her a nice little bang just to fill in that space and make her hair look a little bit more complete. And it's just a small piece of hair that was rolled up, and I'm adding a nice amount of glue right to her hairline and adding the little bang. I think the little bang added the finishing touch that her hairstyle needed. That looks much better. Now, I didn't do a lot to add finishing touches to her other than add a brooch to the neckline of her dress, and I thought that looked really, really pretty. And then I added gold studs as earrings because she's quite a sophisticated lady. So here's a quick flashback at the dolls prior to their hair and details. And here they are, fully outfitted and ready for the wedding. Now I can focus on completing Marguerite's wedding dress. I included my little boy, that's the little boy from the estate sale, and I fixed his hair up too. I didn't show it on camera. Oops, I forgot the little girl. And there she is with her hair on, and she even has a little hat. Now, if you've enjoyed this video today and want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe, and always look for me on Mondays and Wednesdays after 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Little Gretchen's Workshop. Bye-bye now, dolls.